This is something I look forward to doing at least monthly inside our school community. It's where I just do live Q&A. Joe reached out about a week or so ago and said, "Hey, I got some questions for you. Can I talk?" And I said, "You know what? Let's just make this the June live Q&A." So that is what we're going to do. I did post in the school community what questions you might have. The plan of attack is we're going to go through all of Joe's questions first. Second, we will go through the school community questions second. And then if you all have questions after that, we will get to yours as well. Go ahead and put things in the comment section if you would like. Or is it just me, or can no one hear anything? Joe, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Anyone else out there not able to hear? Just want to make sure this is not a complete waste of time. Can somebody give me something in the chat? Are we good? I can hear you. Okay. That's what. Okay. We're going to be good. Trade better 20. I'm going to guess it's on your end. Check it out. Let me know. All right. So Joe, you've created some questions. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story, and then let's just jump in and start rocking and rolling.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, first off, Michael, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Joe Howe. I live in Dallas, Texas. I've really resonated with Michael's story. Being in technology sales, I'm a W-2 guy and have enjoyed watching your journey, Michael, going from a highly successful W-2 person at top-tier tech firms to building this real estate portfolio, which is why I joined the school community. I will say thank you for everything you do in the school community. I've been a member for about 3 weeks and I've gotten incredible value. So it's
Awesome.
really worth it. I'd love to just hop into some questions
Let's roll.
and then open it up to anyone else that may have some other questions. So
Perfect.
with that said, you've talked a little bit about your first deal at 1818 Norris Drive on numerous occasions, and obviously that ended up being a successful deal for you. I'd love to learn a little bit more about some of the key learnings, both good and bad, from your first 10 doors, and what you might do differently knowing what you know now.
Awesome. That's a good one. So I'm gonna cap it at 8 doors because after 8 doors, we made a big pivot and we did a bunch of 1031 exchanges. So I'm going to talk about Olivia and Zuber, kind of 8 houses. And the first thing I want to make clear is it was really never my goal to own 8 houses. When I got into this and we started going down the journey with Norris Drive, our grand vision, Joe, was 4. That's as big as my mind would go, which, in fairness, is a strength and also a weakness. The reason I consider it a strength is it felt really doable, right? I never had a question that if we kept grinding that we could get to 4. I would say it's also a weakness, and this is a weakness I've admitted on many times. I don't have this grand vision, right? I never thought of 20 or 50 or 100 or 200. And, there's just some people that have that. But for me, it was always just moving forward. So that's the first thing I think about. The next thing is it really paid to be disciplined. I mean, you guys have probably heard me say it, but I'll bring it into practice. Our first 4, it might have been our first 5 purchases, were all in my same buy box, right? I talk about, 93703, that the same stick. That's all we bought. That means I ignored everything else. I think a lot of new investors, even the ones that get their first deal, they open the aperture too soon. They go too broad too soon. And that's where mistakes happen. I think the focus and daily discipline of 93703, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, 12 to 2,000 square feet was a strength because I knew with certainty when I had a deal. If I had expanded it to other areas, I might have been close, but I still would have been guessing. I think too many investors open the buy box too soon. And we did not do that. Third, by the time we had 8 houses, we had fired 2 property managers, right? The first one, I think, lasted 4 months. The next one was, I don't know, I think a little bit longer, but not much. And property management, is hard. It's a thankless business. But as somebody who was very likely to be in another state, if not another country, I needed somebody that would communicate and I could trust. And very quickly realized the first two had a good story. They knew the words I wanted to hear, but they didn't follow through, right? Their words did not match their action. And that's where I started to really understand that the property manager for Olivia and I was everything. Because it might as well have been in a different country, right? Fresno might still be in the state of California, but it was 2.5 hours away, 5 hours round trip. I only had one day a week where I could do anything. So it might as well have been states away. So you have to be able to trust and vet the PM. I guess fourth, the big mistake I made in our first 8 units or 8 houses was I didn't network. I really didn't. I didn't network. I felt like I had my spreadsheet and I had access to the internet anywhere I went, and that was enough. It really does frustrate me. I mean, Olivia and I could have probably doubled our size, our cash flow, or gotten there 5 years sooner if I would have started really purposely networking earlier. Because your network, it will bail you out. It will eventually feed you deals. It will give you contractors. It's an access to private money. My biggest mistake is I didn't network those first 5 years. I guess I did. It's no guess. I had a scarcity mindset. I kind of tried to figure it out on my own. I shouldn't have done that, and haven't done that, since. And then I guess the last thing, and a plug for school, is you got to get in the right groups. I mean, even though we're only about 110 students now, I'm seeing people post deals, questions. What should I do? How should I do that? You got to do that with people that are actually doing the same stuff. If you do that with your friends and family, they're going to give you what's their bias, which is probably not something you're interested in. I didn't have a group of friends that I could really talk to probably for the first 8 years. So, those are my first. I guess I'll close with one last thought. As we 1031 Norris Drive to Vassar, which was our first commercial property, you got to realize if you ever make that jump, all your history and buy box and numbers is different. Running a multifamily, very different than a house. Average tenure, very different. You're part-time consultant now because people don't like people. So that's my first brain dump on question one. You can ask anything you want about that.
It bleeds perfectly into my second question, which is the transition from residential to commercial multifamily. When did you decide that? When did you have the aha moment and say, you know what, I'm going to go for this? And then tell us a little bit more about your first deal.
Yeah. So it started with, so you got to remember, Olivia and I, 8 units, we're probably cash flowing $1,200 to $1,500 a month total at that point, maybe 1,700. It's working. It's now, we're past the point of proof of concept. We know what we could do. We go to a real estate meetup led by a gentleman named Bruce Norris, who at the time was, the guy in California. He's now in Florida. And he produced a report called the California Crash. And this is 2006, right? We haven't rolled over yet. It might have even been 2005. And he's a chart guy, data guy, kind of speaks to me as an accountant. So he introduced this thing called the Affordability Index, which I never had heard of. I paid to go to the event for Olivia and I. So on the way home, she's like, I guess you have some homework to do, which was, that was my job, right? Find capital, find deals. Her job was to run the books. So she was like, hey, you got to go figure out if this guy's telling, if he's on to something, because we're all in houses. And if California's going to crash, we don't want to be here, right? This is a problem. Go figure it out, Zuber. So I researched Fresno. I realized that Fresno at the time, I think the affordability score got down to a 12. It had historically run into 30 or 40s. When I started buying, it was over 50. All of this means is that Fresno is very expensive. Then I start to realize that the lending environment changed. So when we bought Norris Drive, full loan. When we bought our 8th house, I kid you not, they had me sign a blank loan application. And they're like, don't worry, we got your file. We'll fill it in for you. You're busy.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, is that really what we're doing now? So again, I hear Bruce. I relate it to what's going on. I look at the last deal that we did. It was very skinny. And I'm like, I go back to Norris Drive and I go, would I buy Norris Drive today? And the answer was no. We bought Norris Drive at 107. It rented for 1100. 3 years later, it was worth 260 and still rented for 1100. I wouldn't buy that deal. So when I put all of that together, I decided to sell. And like always, I get a proof of concept first. So Norris Drive, which, oh, by the way, if you read my book, is an alligator now. So it's already pissing me off every month because I got to take $200 out of my income to feed the damn thing. So I go, great, I know which one I'm selling. So the beauty at the time was multifamily was very dead because everybody was buying homes. It was the only time we had to offer move-in specials. In my 20-year career in Fresno, California, the only time I had to offer move-in specials was 2006. So multifamily was at a depressed price. So we found a fiveplex called Vassar, which I still own today. We found it. I think the price point was 223. It rented for 2,500. It was $500 a door. They're all ones at the time, and we took about 100 grand in equity out of Norris when we sold it and rolled it into Vassar. So we were almost immediately at a 50% LTV, right? Because it was just all equity, no cash. We had to put about 15, 18 grand in to kind of bring it up to speed. But what I quickly learned with Vassar, and I mean quickly, I'm like 30 or 45 days, is the headaches because this unit was 5 units all side by side, right? And then the garages were on the other end. So, they were all connected. You're a counselor when you start getting the small units like that. My neighbor did this, the dog's doing that, the parking is this, this is this. And you also realize that the seller who was happy to get out of it probably filled that building up with tenants you don't want. So we went on a years-long journey with Vassar of frankly bleeding. I think we lost, 20 grand probably on Vassar that first year because we had turnover and management issues and all of those things. But once we invested that, we raised rents almost immediately once we updated it, probably just to 650. And again, this is 2007, 8 at this point. Rents on that just, for grins are like 11 or 1200 today. So, inflation's a feature, not a bug. But yeah, man, I've said it before. If I could build a portfolio of just houses like Dion, really, and duplexes, it's so much easier. I mean, that was a 5-unit building. We went on to buy 18s and 20s and 13s. It's a whole level of management headache. And again, I say that as somebody who wasn't even involved day to day. I only got the escalations, right?
Right.
So just think about what happened, with the day-to-day property management. So yeah, Vassar was Vassar was eye-opening because the 3 years of my buy box, I tried to take the same math and ratios to Vassar, completely different. Average tenure in a house is 8 years. Average tenure in a unit like that's, at the time was like 15 months. It's completely different calculations. So, lots of experiences to learn going from a house, to a bigger multifamily.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot about the coming opportunity in B and C class multifamily. I
Oh
also
yeah.
know you still have your buy box today, and you're looking at your new market that you're moving to, Las Vegas. I'd love to learn a little bit more about if you were to do it again right now. You didn't have the Michael Zuber portfolio, and you were
Yeah.
starting from scratch, right? What are you buying? Are you buying? You're going to buy a good deal, but are you more
Yeah.
focused on the buy box single family, or do you think that upcoming opportunity in B and C class multifamily is just too good, and people should really lean into that?
So I'm going to give you two answers because there's two different times in my life, and I just feel like I owe that to you. If I'm Mike Zuber 30, I'm still on the come up. I still have a head, like I'm already working 50 hours a week, but I'm about to get promoted, get more responsibility. I'm about to go from 50 to 80-hour weeks plus travel. I'm doing singles. Maybe, I'm staying residential. right? So
Okay.
4 and below. I'm probably duplexes and singles. And I'm talking like 2 houses, 1 lot, you know. I like creating space. They're just easier and less headaches. And my job is going to be able to is to sell as much software, get as much RSUs, and just bank, you know, great deals in houses. And I think great deals are coming because, you know, the market's clearly slowing down, like I talked about in the daily financial news today. So I'm going to be writing disrespectful offers on houses and getting some. It's just a numbers game. However, if I'm Mike Zuber, 45 and financially free, don't have the W-2, have the experience and the teams, I am not kidding. I plan to 1031 out because I still have everything I'm doing in Fresno. Even though I'm shopping in Vegas, I've told my team in Fresno that I expect probably in early 25 to take some of my houses, sell them in 1031 into apartment buildings. So I say that as somebody who's financially free, has a team in place for a decade. I won't sleep on it. If I could take advantage of what we did last time, I would. So that's kind of 2 different answers based on my timeline.
Yeah, no, I think that's great feedback. There's a combination of people in the school community, people that are all in on real estate investing. Then you have guys like me that are 60 hours a week W-2 guys. So that's very helpful in understanding which lane should we fit in based on our personal circumstances. Well, let me zoom back to the W-2 piece. You know, you were working at HPE, Splunk. These aren't Mickey Mouse tech firms. These are top tier tech firms, and you had legitimate roles, global responsibilities. How the hell did you balance all that? But between building this incredible portfolio and still traveling all over the world, and I know how hard the tech world can be and the stress of having a quota and a number, and you know you are what you sell, right? And you're just as good as your last deal. How did you do it?
So I've thought about this a lot, knowing that we were probably going to get to this question eventually, or a question like it. And the honest answer was I always focused on the next deal. I had no grand vision. I didn't lose sleep over the fact that we didn't have 100 doors. I didn't lose sleep over this or that. My job, Joe, was just the next deal. That's all I could focus on. And as soon as we closed the next deal, it became the next deal. Because again, dude, a 60-hour work week in my job was light because I had travel on top of that.
Right.
We would do emergency things. We travel on Sundays because we had to be in Europe on Monday. All I could ever do is give myself grace to shop for the next deal. And I thought that way for more than a decade. I tell a story, which you may or may not have heard. This is like 11 years into our journey. I'm now a senior executive at a tech firm, which means I have managers, like I'm second line, right? I'm 1 step below SVP at this time. So like I got some stress. And we go to a housewarming party for a direct report of mine. He reports to me. And he lives in a part of town. If you know Silicon Valley, he lives in Los Altos. We're in Mountain View. Los Altos is, you know, where everybody wants to be when you made it. So we go to this party. He's in a house. I'm in a condo. He's got a backyard. I don't. You know, he's got, I don't know, 2,800 square feet, twice as big as our condo. And we start driving home and I have to pull over because I'm literally frying. Like I can't see the road. And Olivia's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know if it's working. I don't know if it's working. We're 11 years in. Our portfolio is probably over 100 units at this point, and I'm feeling like a complete loser at this moment in time. And the reason, Joe, I bring this story up is because I was always focused on the next deal. Olivia took care of the books. I had no idea what was, that's how busy and committed I was. I was laser focused on the next thing. And she had to go home. First off, she had to drive home, right? Because it was reckless to drive. She drove us home and she pulled out the portfolio, which I had never looked at. I just like next. Yeah. And let's just say after that 30 minutes, I felt a lot better because I knew it was working.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, you can see your actual net worth on paper and all the appreciation and what
cash
that meant.
flow. Yeah. It's like, holy cow.
A much bigger house than 2,800 square feet at the time if you wanted in Los Altos.
Yeah.
So at what point did you ever have, a moment when you were scaling? Let's say you went from 10 houses to 50, 10 doors to 50 doors, where it was like, oh shit, this is too much. We're over our skis. How did you balance that? And then you're shaking your head no. So then what systems did you put in place to
Yeah.
ensure that that didn't happen? Because I feel like if you don't build the right foundation and at the bottom, you're
Mhm.
screwed when you get to a certain point. So I think that'd be valuable for the audience to understand.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that is unique to my story, and I give Olivia all the credit in the world for pretty much everything. Again, she ran the books,
Mm.
right? So she was our lines of separation were clear: find deals, secure capital, run the books, manage the PMs. So she took a lot of the heavy lifting of running the books and the operations. It was I. Let's be clear: if I was a single guy, there's no chance we were able to do what we did. I couldn't do both jobs given my day job was so all encompassing. I probably still get to 8 houses, but I don't know that we go that because running 8 houses is very different than 80 apartments. It's just management headache. Olivia's job got a lot harder with 80 units. So first, roles and responsibility were clear. Second, I started to manage the PM like I would manage a sales rep,
Okay.
weekly calls, follow up, communication. We found a PM that we finally trusted. That helped. And we built a system and processes. I really did create separation. I was focused on growth and she was focused on management. And that was very, very helpful. And the other thing that I've talked about in passing, but maybe it becomes more clear now, is we did our date night, if you will, was Friday sushi. We would go out and have Friday sushi every Friday, probably 45 Fridays out of a year. And she would tell me what's going on in the portfolio, and I would tell her what deals I'm finding. And that A allowed her to feel better, B allowed me to feel better. And if I had to escalate anything, because she was the good guy, I was the bad guy. If I needed to call someone and yell at someone, that was my job. Um, so yeah, it constant communication and a partner who, frankly, did all the hard work was a saving grace for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's really impressive. I think, um, that's something that not everyone will have the opportunity to take advantage of. She obviously seems really skilled, detail oriented, and was a great
Mhm.
a great teammate and great partner. So that's fantastic. Zooming back in on, you mentioned, what you're looking to buy now and making sure you don't get alligators. What are some key opportunities that you feel are coming in the residential space, right? Like, in other words, do you think that the MLS will have hot deals, or do you think this is an opportunity to work with wholesalers, both? Where should people be looking to find the best opportunity to write disrespectful offers?
I'm trying to pull up a text I got from Ty and my agent in Fresno, Joe D, because this is the attitude you should have. I just want to make sure I get to it. Here we go. So first off, I've always shopped in the MLS, right? I retire, I don't know, what is it now, 6, 7 years ago, and I bought 2 deals not out of the MLS. It is sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. 2020, 2021, 22, impossible out of the MLS. I think the next 2 years, we will undoubtedly get most of our deals from the MLS.
Wow.
Yeah, I would bet $1,000 right now that by the end of 2025, most of my deals come from the MLS. Now, part of that's because that's where I'm going to be looking,
Sure.
right? That's just fairness. But I'll take deals but from 2020 to 2023, I think I got 1 deal out of the MLS and like 10 or 11 from wholesalers. So you just got to know what season we're in. But the point of this is you got to do both. You like part of their ORAT rules. I think it's number is it? Number 3, meet 2 new people a week. That never stops. I still do that today, right? And I've been doing it 20 years. Guess what? I got a big old Rolodex. So never do that. But let's talk about the MLS because this is the attitude I want you to have. So this came from Ty, 30-year veteran of real estate. I think buyers have hit a threshold. That's how the text starts. It's going to be nice to start seeing good deals, creative deals, and substitute deals on mediocre stuff in the MLS. I am going to start to market, meaning write offers, on days on market over 30 with keywords like fixer, cosmetic fixer, eviction, probate. He's basically going to use the MLS to start hunting. Folks, this is what I've been screaming for 6 months. Watch days on market, get a buy box, watch days on market. After 30 days or 40, whatever it is for your market, write numbers that make sense, right? And again, I'm not talking 5% off, people. And oh, by the way, hear me now. I do not want your seller to say yes to your first offer. I want it to be that disrespectful. I want them to say, I don't even want them to counter. I want you to set the hook so that you could do your job and follow up every week. Maybe, depending on how disrespectful, maybe raise it a little bit. You got to get the communication. The deals are coming. If we are on a buyer strike and rates stay above 7, dude, you see the jobs number on Friday? You see rates shoot up? Holy cow. If we stay above 7, we get into the summer, the fall, the winter, we could have inventory up at 900,000 instead of 400,000. It is finally going to be time for us, one rental at a time, folks, to find motivated sellers. They've been hiding. They're not going to be hiding much longer.
Yeah, it seems like a huge opportunity is coming, which is really exciting. One thing that I know I've been curious about, I'm sure others have been curious about, is you mentioned that a lot of the appreciation for the next decade happened in the past couple of years. At what point do you think we'll start seeing appreciation again? I know we should buy for cash flow, but at what point, that does factor into the ROI calculation a little bit. I mean, do you think we'll get the 2 or 3% type of appreciation in later years in 2020, or should we not even expect that based on your assumptions?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. So I'll answer the question and then I'll go deeper for us. So again, if you take a look at my 54-year spreadsheet, which if you haven't, you should go get it. It's on my website and it's free. What's hopefully you see in that is over the last 54 years, home appreciation adjusted for inflation is 1%. So why should we assume the future will be any different? So that's my long run thesis is housing goes up roughly with inflation. However, given that we have 30-year debt and we're going to pay it off over years and cheaper dollars and all that, inflation's a feature, not a bug. So, buy deals at cash flow. Now let's talk about us. When you're doing what I'm talking about, you should be buying below value from somebody who must sell. So you will be making your equity or your spread the day you buy. So you should be walking into 5, 10, 15, 20% appreciation because you bought right and you saw the value. I don't think the market's going to bail anybody out. If you buy an alligator, you're going to go 8 to 10 years. Appreciation is not going to bail you out. Inflation might, but just nominal appreciation is not coming. 54 years of history, 70s, 80s, 90s, this crazy last 5 years. Home appreciation on a nominal basis is 1%. It's probably going to be that the next 54 years.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And look, you talked a lot about inflation. This will bring my next question, which isn't necessarily housing related at all, but I know obviously with your background in economics, I'm just curious to get your perspective. No one's crystal ball is clear, but if you were to look into yours and it's 2035, are you bullish or bearish on America?
Oh, bullish. One thing, I think there's something that I'm anchored to is whether we like it or not, we have a lot of problems here. There's no question. The best and the brightest want to be here, and that's not going to change at any time in the future. I would not go anywhere else. And believe me, I could go almost anywhere. I'm not leaving the United States. It's where the best and brightest want to be. I will never be not pro-America. That's something I can say confidently. And I say that with hopefully 50 years left, even with all the nonsense that we have today. There's no place I'd rather be. There is no place where a Section 8 mom, a teenage mom, a broke kid, a ninth grade dropout, somebody who's, hundreds of $1,000s in debt, making $17 an hour, could become a millionaire in less than a decade than America. Shut up, own your shit, stop waiting for the government to bail you out, and go do your fucking job. That's what I think.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm a patriot too, so I appreciate that. You hear all the noise on the news, so it's good to get your perspective. I see someone in the comments saying, cleanest dirty shirt out there, strong America. I totally agree.
Bro,
You mentioned
absolutely.
Section 8 in that last example, and selfishly, I have to ask because I do have some Section 8 properties.
Yeah.
I know it's market dependent, different state rules for different tenants, but have you ever dabbled
Yeah.
in
Oh,
Section
no.
8?
Yeah, but big part of my story is Section 8. So I grew up housing insecure. If you don't know my story, we were a day away from being evicted. It was a big deal. So every unit I have is available for Section 8. Every unit. It's a big, I will never buy a house that doesn't, every house I own will always be open to Section 8. Big deal for me. I think my portfolio has ranged from 30% Section 8 tenants to maybe as high as 40% at any given time. I have been doing this for 20 plus years. I have had horrible Section 8 tenants. I have had Section 8. I'm in California. We've had budget crisis where Section 8 payments were delayed. I've had, this, that, and the other. I am a pro Section 8 guy. One of the reasons I love Section 8 actually makes most landlords crazy. So at Section 8, they do these things called yearly inspections, which, oh, by the way, I have to pay for as the landlord, and I still like them. Why do I like them? Because at the end of a Section 8 inspections, I get a report. I get a report that, hey, the tenant's great. The tenant's dirty. The tenant this, the tenant that. I also get a condition report of my property. And guess what I do with that? I go back to my property manager and go, hey, great job. Or what the hell am I paying you for? Why are these things broken? Go fix them. So I am a huge Section 8 fan. Now, again, it comes with its overhead, which it's the cost of doing business. But I will always have every unit that comes available open for Section 8. Always.
Great, great. I'd love to just a little bit more about you. You have crazy energy in a good way. You're posting all these videos. Is it coffee? Is it green tea? Is it just what wires you? What you don't have to do this.
No.
What makes you tick? What makes you go?
Well, you know what's funny? You bring that up. When you say you don't have to do it, my first reaction is you're right, but I actually think you're wrong. Let me explain.
All
I
right.
don't have to do it for the money. That is clear. But I have to do it for the mission. I have to do this. If I don't do this, Joe, I will get a job. I have to feel like I am now 51, almost 52. I hope to have this energy for at least another decade, if not 2 decades, where I'm getting up excited to help people or do something. If I don't do it, if I don't do this, Joe, I get depressed. I have evidence. I retire financially free at 45, and 3 weeks later, I'm having suicidal thoughts because I'm freaking feeling like I'm not doing anything. I will never go back there. So I actually have to do this. Now, does it have to be 1 minute at a time? Of course not. I have to have a mission. That's just how I'm wired. And for me, the beauty that I have is I could do my mission in 10 to 15 hours a week and feel like I have contributed. And then that means I've got 129 hours to do whatever the heck else I want. So pretty cool if you ask me.
It is. It is. And that leads me to my final question before I open it up to the rest of the group. Whether it's your mission or top goals over the next decade, talk to us a little bit more about that. What do you want the next decade to look like for Michael Zuber? And what are some of the maybe top 3 things that you're hoping to accomplish personally?
Yeah, this is such a big weakness of mine. I never think about the next decade. It's just never what I've done. It's probably because of my sales career. You know this.
Yeah.
I had monthly goals and quarterly goals and yearly
Right.
goals. We didn't have decade goals. We didn't have 5-year goals. It was like, show up, perform, keep your job.
Right.
And I lived in that world for 20 years. Like I have been to more QBRs because like when you're an executive, you're probably going to 5 to 8 QBRs every quarter. QBR is quarterly business review. It's basically where you go look at performance and you make the plan. I don't think in that, but I will tell you the mission, right? I am fundamentally trying to change generations. That's what I'm doing. And the beauty of this 5 years, 6 years of consistency is I get almost daily notes now, almost daily, of you help me, you help me. And that's like fuel. That's why I'm doing this. Um, Now school is very unique for me because it gives me just another platform where I can take all the millionaires that I interact with, and that list is growing, and smash them together with people earlier in their journey. I think that's going to be awesome. Like we have Simon tomorrow, and everybody wanted Greg Dickerson. If you don't know who he is, he's awesome. He was on the channel for 3 years. He's coming back on Monday. But dude, I'm having so much fun. If I had like some things that Olivia and I have talked about. So we just did the Vegas event last year, President's Day. We're going to do it again this year. I would actually love to do it twice a year, once in Vegas, once in Miami. Right? I
I
would
like the
love to.
location selection. Those are fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, because I want to have fun too, right? It's
Sure.
like if I'm going to go, let's have some fun. I would love to do things like, Olivia and I like to cruise. Maybe sometime in the future we do an ORAC cruise. I have some friends and some of them are on this channel in Hawaii. Wouldn't it be cool to do a Hawaii event? Like if we can mash up location-based Zuper Olivia having fun with kind of giving back. I mean, how about ORAT does Paris or ORAT does Sydney, or I mean, you could get really nutty with this. Um, yeah, those are things that excite me. And again, the other thing I'm really playing with is I want people to realize I really do believe we have 4 seasons of life. Season 1 is where people take care of you, mom and dad. Season 4, if you live that long, is where health workers take care of you. But dude, let's talk about the meat and potatoes. Season 2 is your job to bust your ass, create disposable income, buy assets that feed season 3. Season 3 is not about sitting on the sidelines. It's about finally doing what your mission, what makes you happy for as long as freaking possible. So I believe in grinding and delayed gratification and all of that. If you could do season 2 in 10 years and have 50 years of season 3, I'd make that trade every day. So I want more and more people to see that. So those are things off the top of my head.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to ask you some questions. And thank you for, I'll say this, not being a doomer. It's really nice to get real information and not all this bullshit that all the doomers are spewing that scares you from making moves. So thank you for everything you do, Michael. We hope you have a long season 3 so that we can all work with you and get a lot of value. I'll turn it back over to you to open it up for questions for the group.
Yeah. So folks, we're going to take questions in the comment section. I'm going to first go to our school, and I'm going to go to our post where we had some questions put in. So I'm just going to go through them and see. So the first one came from Kevin. I haven't read it yet. So you mentioned several times that you reused the same 50K of your money to buy several houses, and they were 100% financed. I'd like to understand how you did that over and over again, and that houses cash flow, hedge fund, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. So you got to remember the timing that we're doing this. So this is 2010, 11, 12. We're buying houses somewhere between, I think the lowest one we bought was 28 grand up to 80 grand. They all needed remodel because they were all vacant and busted. So what we were doing was buying for cash, fixing up. So let's just take a house. Let's take a real house, like 728 North Arthur. I think we buy that. Actually, you know what? Let's just do real numbers. Let me go to Zillow. See, we'll do real numbers. Where the hell is Zillow on my phone? Let's just do some real numbers. So 728 North Arthur. 728 North Arthur. Here it is. Oh, wow. Currently worth 291. I did not pay anything close to that. History. I just want to get the actual price so we're not using fake numbers. I buy it for 41 grand, May 29th, 2009. So we buy that same cash, 41 grand. We put 10 or 12 grand into it. North Arthur actually is a 4.2, even though it's listed as a 2.1, it's a 4.2. It rented at the time for like $12.50, something like that. That obviously cash flow. So what we did at the time is we had a website called Wealth Building Pro. It was before YouTube. And I wrote up blog posts talking about what we were doing. What happened is, in this case, a friend of mine named Kevin Kevin came to me and says, "Hey, I got all this money in my bank account, maybe a money market, but I think he said bank account, not earning the interest. I like what you've done. Can I loan you some money?" And I hadn't done this yet. But I basically go back to Kevin and I say, I want to do, 50 grand. So today it's called Burr, but I didn't know what I was doing. Right. And I was writing on Bigger Pockets at the time. And, the first guy, Kevin, got 12% interest, but 12% interest on, 50 grand is $500. I'm renting it for 1250, cash flow all day long. So we do that a couple of times. I think Kevin does the loans on the first two or three and realize that this is the way to go. So we use the same. I always bought it with cash with our money, did the repairs, and then went back and got money. I think a lot of people try to borrow money day one. That's not who we are. I thought that was too risky. You just never know where repairs are going. But once I bought it, repaired it, stuck a tenant in, I was perfectly happy going back and borrowing all the money again because it would cash flow. And we did that over and over again. And the beauty, what the power in our story is, and again, you could go back on YouTube and look at some of my first 1,000 or 2,000 videos. We did this again in 2018. I retired February 2nd of 2018. I think we start flipping homes April of 2018. We end up doing 50 flips, 50 plus flips. I did the same thing, except now instead of writing, I did videos. And instead of doing 12% interest, we did 6, and then we gave 20% of the equity. The point is document, document, document. Don't talk about it. Show people what you're doing, show reality, show the misses. You'll have endless access to capital. So that was that question. Hopefully that's good. I've done it to bots. Okay. Just going through the questions. We'll go to comments. If you have comments, we'll go there next. Let me find one more question. Oh, there's a lot of questions about dead equity. Dead equity. And again, this makes total sense to me. How many of you took my advice and bought something in the last 3 or 4 years? If you did, congratulations. You took action when all the noise was not. You have a lot of equity. And you're probably sitting on a bunch of cash flow or a bunch of cash flow. So now you get the opportunity to decide what to do. So the first piece of advice for debt equity is know where you are in your journey. Are you in growth mode or are you in harvest mode? So if you're in harvest mode, you don't have to do anything. You're enjoying life, right? You have the cash flow. That's where you are. Most of you watching this probably aren't in harvest mode. So we'll talk about the other side in more detail. It's all the numbers, folks. I want to be very, very clear. For a decade, we ran our portfolio at about 80% LTV. When we had equity in those houses, we took it out. When we had equity in our apartments, we took it out because we were in growth mode. Now, of course, the same rule applies. Don't create alligators. Don't do those things. But if you're in growth mode and you feel good about your job, you're in growth mode. So what does that mean? Well, your world today is different than mine. The world that I invested through, rates were falling. So I could do what was called a cash out refi. I could take cash out, probably get a lower rate, and my cash flow would change marginally. I understand that's not the world you're in. So for you, I think the answer becomes home equity line or second mortgage if you're in growth mode. Most of you should not get rid of that low first. You should understand how to calculate the blended interest rate, right? You need to be able to understand that calculation. If you don't know it, talk to your mortgage broker. Most of you will not get rid of that first. However, if you could go get a second at say 8, 9, 10%, and you could put that money to work making 14, 15, 16, that's interesting. That's positive growth. So those are the calculations we have to think about in today's world. How do I use my debt equity without getting rid of my first? And it's really a math formula. Figure out the blended rate, figure out what the return of the next asset could be. And for some of you, the answer is going to be leave the debt equity alone. So what would I do? So what I would do probably on one of our houses is I would get a home equity line. Would be the first thing I would do. Why a home equity line first, not a second? Because I want access, but not the requirement. I want to know that I have access to 40 grand, but I don't want the 40 grand, if that makes sense. Right? I want to shop for deals. I want to know I could pull the trigger if I can. I want to know what the cost of capital is. So if I had my druthers, the first thing I would do is get an equity line. But let me be very, very clear. I would not use it for anything other than buying the next asset. No trips, no cars, no credit card debt cancellation or reduction. If we're in growth mode, we're in growth mode, right? If I use that equity line and I started to see, like, if the market goes where I think it's going to go in the next 12, 18, 24 months, it might be time to get seconds. But I don't think we're there yet. I think today is an equity line because I need the market needs time and I want access, but not the requirement. If we get into a world where days on market is 45, we have flipped from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Like if we're in a true buyer's market, anything close to 2010 to 12, I'm getting seconds because I want the capital. I want it now. I want it fixed, but we're not there yet. So hopefully that ramble made sense. All right. Let's go to the questions from the group. Here's one from Lars. I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to read it out loud. I live on the West Coast and own 2 rentals in Delaware. This summer, me and the wife and the oldest just graduated. Congratulations, are flying to Ohio, out to Ohio and Delaware. Okay. I intend to co-borrow on a house with my son and have him get roommates that will turn into a rental after he moves out of the house. Okay. I plan setting up the property management company and manage the property so the roommates don't know. What advice do you have? So the biggest thing, again, I'm just being just who I am, blunt, is you're going to have to tell your son to keep his mouth shut. Right? So if the roommates learn, it's going to be because your son says something. It's the reality. That's it. It's just that's how they're going to find out. Most roommate situations are never going to figure out who the owner is. Most people aren't going to pay for the title search, aren't going to do those things. So I understand the concern, but realize your single greatest point of failure is your son blabbing. And again, let's be clear. He's not going to blab the first couple of months. These people that live there are eventually going to become his friends. And the risk is 6-9 months into that, one of these boys out doing what boys do, he's going to tell him. And that's where the dynamic changes. So I think in your comment, I think I read into or between the lines, you're worried about how to put in an LLC or this or that, man, this or that. I think your biggest single point of failure is your son, just given human behavior. That's my thoughts on that. All right. Oh, Joe's totally rocking this interview. Joe, you got some love from the audience. Don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Can't wait for season 3. Dude, season 3 is amazing. School. Let me just rant about school for a minute. And I say this as somebody who has an advanced degree. So I went to school for a long time. School produces employees. School does nothing to tell you you don't have to work 40 years. It's not in their best interest. They want you to work for 40 years. And I think it is shocking that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that purple book was the freaking light bulb moment for me to go, oh my God, you mean I don't have to climb the corporate ladder and work forever? And do this, Joe, you're in tech, you're in sales, do this. I want you right now. I'm going to look at your facial expression. You don't have to say a word. Your frontline, you have a quota today, yes?
I have a team, so I'm an enterprise sales leader, direct reports.
So you're first line. So you have your first line.
Correct.
All right. So I want you to look up your org chart. Look to your boss. Second line. Look to your boss's boss, probably an SVP, probably owns, a country. If you are honest with yourself, do you want their life at all? You don't have to say a word. I will tell you my experience. When I finally had this light bulb moment, I looked up my org chart, and this is what I saw. I saw fat, in obese, unhealthy people. They were on their second or third marriage. They were addicted to legal and not legal things. They had stress beyond stress. And it was that moment I realized I'm done with this nonsense. I'm going to bust my ass, make as much money as I humanly can. I'm going to over rotate and learn more than anybody else. And I'm going to get out of this freaking rat race. Most of you should, like a lot of people looking at this. And again, let me be very clear. I am not negative job. I am pro job. I am an employee, not an entrepreneur. But here's the deal. You have to look at your job as a key, not a prison. All this nonsense about I hate my job and this, that, the other. Dude, your job makes you bankable. It is your financial decisions that have your expenses exceeding your income. That's on you. Use your job as the key to the future. I am pro job. All right, let's keep going. Sorry for that rant. Question from let's see. What are your thoughts about buying? Oh, Ken, what are your thoughts about buying into a franchise? I think you have to buy the right franchise. Obviously, I talk with Bo Eckstein every Wednesday. I think you got to figure out which franchise is right for you. I think a franchise is a cheat code to accelerate because there's processes and procedures. It's not lost on me, just like real estate franchise, it's work. You gotta work it. But if I had any entrepreneurial ilk in me, I could see myself buying franchises. It's just not who I am. But again, if that's who you are, I think franchises could be the right answer for a lot of people. I think a franchise is much better than starting something from scratch. I think starting from scratch is way harder and underappreciated. All right, question from Jen. How do you try to get your daughter involved with your journey when you were season 2, and what do you wish you did differently? So first off, I've made some huge mistakes on this question alone. Again, our market was 2.5 hours away. Our daughter, Teresa, was probably 10, 11, 12. At the time we were really in this. Actually, I know exactly how. Yeah, she was 10, 11, 12. I brought her to the ugly stuff. I remember walking, this is a horrible story. I remember walking into a unit that had been vacant for months, opening the front door, and roaches rained down like a thunderstorm. That's how bad it was. Now, thankfully, we didn't go inside, so they didn't hit anybody. But that image is stuck on my daughter's face or memory for a long time. Probably still is if you asked her. And what I would recommend to anybody in this game is don't show them the ugly side. Show them the pretty side, right? Show them the completed project. Second, something I really wish I did, and Jen, you and Ken could probably do this now, is I would take your kids aside. I would do an experience. You happen to be in California. If your kids like Disneyland, if your kids like Disneyland, my daughter didn't, but if they did, I would do a Disneyland trip this summer. I would have a conversation with them up front saying, hey, we are doing this because of our real estate investments. I want to show you the real estate investments. I want to show you the cash flow. And then I would do the trip. Every day I would have a story about your rentals. I would connect a good memory, Disneyland, with real estate. That is something I wish I had done. And as they get older, something I wish Olivia and I had done is made it very clear to Teresa that her $200,000 education, which we paid for, she has no student debt. Her education is 5x what my college was, 5x. And she was able to have that no student debt, unlike all of her friends, because of real estate. We should have done a better job of connecting that. Hey, Teresa, we just wrote a $48,000 check for your freshman tuition because of real estate. Hey, we just did a $51,000 check and paid for room and board because of real estate. We should have done a better job of connecting good memories with real estate. We didn't do that. We We were always focused on the yucky parts. And that's what Teresa remembers, is the yucky parts, unfortunately. All right, folks, keep coming with the questions. Actually, you know what? Let's be fair. Let me go back to school. I'm just pulling up on my phone and see if a question's there while you guys put in more. Oh, Stacy asks a question. She has 3 city lots. One has a garage, one has a house, and the other one is a lot. I think I remember saying it's not big enough to build anything. Excuse me. So I think there were some good questions, Stacy, about possibly adding an ADU off of the first lot. So how you would do that? Probably what you would have to do, you have to work with your city. Actually, I would reach out to Derek, that ADU guy who's a part of the community. See, you probably have to get lot 3 connected to lot 2. So it's called rezoning. Hence, lot 2 becomes bigger. And then you probably can add an ADU onto lot 2. So that's probably something you could do, is make lot 3, which is too small, simply rezone it, connect lot 3 with lot 2. Now you have 2 zones. You have a garage, you have a house, and then ultimately you can put an ADU on that. That's what I would look up. Third, what I might do is, if you don't want to do all of that, is I might just try to sell the lot, see if anybody else wants to buy it. You could thus create cash flow. So those were some of the thoughts that I had on, I think it was Stacy's question. All right, we'll go back to the Zoom. Great question. Oh, look at Joe getting more love. And just so you know, folks, I'm open to my plan for you in this community is to do these at least once a month. Knowing me, I might make it twice a month, but I promise once a month. So if anybody else wants to be Joe next time, by all means, this is our community. So raise your hand. I didn't mean raise your hand today. Reach out to me. We'll get it scheduled. Ken, it just seems culturally tenants prefer SFRs over renting apartments. Does it scale? Da, 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 da. So let's talk about this. Again, I say this with experience. I say this talking to tenants. If you've grown up in apartments and your goal is to get into a single family, no question. That's why in recessions, a lot of people in single families will get roommates. They will find a way to stay because they want the yard, they want the garage. And again, I've already told you my experience today is a little bit different. Homes are still 8 years. Apartments now are up to 2 years. So there has been some change in the last, decade or so. But yeah, less turnover, less management. Dude, I have had tenants create flower gardens. I had one tenant put in fake grass because you can't water grass in Fresno. I've had tenants make it theirs. I had one tenant build a white picket fence so his kids could play. And to be clear, I would have done that for him, but he did it himself. So yes, definitely. How do you protect yourself personally? I don't get into the LLC questions because that's legal advice. But yes, I do what I can to create separation. I have umbrella policies. I increase my umbrella policies. But let's be very, very, very clear. The best way to protect yourself is to be on top of things and fix things. Let's not sleep on that. Be a good landlord. Don't be a slumlord. Why do I like Section 8 inspections? Because it's a way I can double check my property manager. The biggest way to avoid things is that. And let's be clear, in 20 years, I have been sued. I think I shared this story because I did a video on this. I was sued for a dog bite. Not on my property, not my tenant, not my dog. It's going to happen. Guess what? Go ahead, file your frivolous lawsuit. I got lawyers too. And guess what? Insurance companies have lawyers. And that thing went away in like 7 seconds. Be a good operator, have landlord insurance, have an umbrella insurance. That's 99% of the battle right there, 95% of the battle. Oh, who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of investors? So I've given you 2 if you watch my channel. Bill Allen, I think his story of working in the military going from flipping singles to building a portfolio and running company. Jason Pritchard, he's the best guy in Fresno, so that's 2. Sam Zell, not only for what he built, but you got to remember Sam Zell started his journey in an environment like we are today, right? He started in the 80s. I think we're going into an environment like the 80s. So Sam Zell, unfortunately, rest in peace, has passed. I would go buy his book. I think it's orange. It's called Am I Being Too Subtle? Now, it's very much Sam Zell. So if curse words piss you off or bother you, don't buy it. That's just who he is. I love that book. I actually read it several times. So Sam Zell's there. And then Blackstone, his name is Jonathan Gray. So here's the deal. I put Sam Zell and Jonathan Gray on Mount Rushmore really for the same transaction. So this is kind of wild. Everybody knows Sam Zell built up this great portfolio. Sam Zell goes on my Mount Rushmore because he sold at the top. He sold, I think it was called Equity Properties, at the tippity top to Blackstone, at the tippity top, and cashed out. Good for him. He knew when to sell, when to take his chips. Now, how could I possibly put Blackstone on the same Mount Rushmore? Because they were the buyer, not the seller. It's because Blackstone had a plan. Inside the first 3 months to 6 months, Blackstone, Jonathan Gray specifically, cherry-picked the assets and sold those things lightning quick to other buyers. Blackstone made a profit buying at the top and kept assets that are now worth a lot. I think that is a wild move where you could celebrate somebody buying at the peak and you can celebrate the buyer. So those are my 4 Mount Rushmore investors. Oh, thank you. I might explore selling the lots. It's right across from the school. There you go. I am going to guess that's Stacy. Yep. Good idea. Raise some capital. Use that money somewhere else. All right. So that's all the questions from the Zoom. Let's go back to school. Oh, how do you write an offer? So this is from Steven. So you can't, at least in most states, you have to write an offer on what's called a purchase agreement. You can have an agent do that, or you can go to the listing agent. But let's be clear. When I say offer, I'm typically verbalizing my offers, certainly in the beginning. As we talked about earlier with Ty, he's going to be writing 2 or 3 offers a day. Those are actually legit offers. But again, you got to remember Ty's a licensed agent, so he can do those. The real key to writing disrespectful offers is the follow-up, which can be phone calls. So Stephen, I see that you came online. You want to follow up with your question on that? You're on.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the issue is that I definitely have to have an agent in this case, because I'm like, to some people, I will come back to you. I'm 2,000, 3,000 kilometers away. And this being said, I have to engage with the agent, but agent is essentially intermediate. So let's say I say some numbers, and then agent might kind of say, look, I think you are a little bit disrespectful.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then kind of like it's not just me and another kind of seller. It's like in between additional discussion. That's why I was about, I mean, for me now it's clear you're essentially giving data to agent, right? And this is the price, this is this, and this you talk. Don't talk outside of this, and then we talk further.
Yeah, what I would do in your situation when you're that far away is I would start interviewing agents. I would tell them exactly my plan. Like, hey, Mark, you're an agent in wherever you are. I'm an investor there. I'm not going to yank your chain, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And I want to make sure up front you're comfortable with this. I'm going to be looking at my buy box every day. I'm going to be running my numbers, and I'm going to be writing offers that are below list price, and they could be substantially below list price. I'm going to give you the data on why I think my number makes sense. If you have a problem with that, tell me now, because I'll just find somebody else.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
make it clear up front.
Sure. Thanks. I just needed this because I generated the powder, and now I'm just sitting to sign with some person because I have formally to sign. They don't kind of want to talk too much unless, signature is there.
Again, I would interview them hard,
Okay,
and I would
thanks.
make it painfully clear. And if you don't write it, like I would go this far, like if they're going to make you some kind of agreement, I would add a clause that says, if you don't submit my offer, this is null and void. I'll go somewhere else.
I see. Okay.
Right? I would
Okay.
hold them accountable.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Good. All right. So that was your question. Oh, Dennis is asking, you're consistently giving back, making content. Do you have any time hobbies? Dennis, thank you. This is obviously something I enjoy doing, but actually my life's pretty awesome. So I wake up at 5:30 without an alarm clock. It's just when I get up. My wife's a night person, so I have 3 hours, 4 hours to myself. I read the financial news for an hour because that's what I've done for 30 years. I play with my dogs. I come on, do a couple of recordings. I talk to my friends. And then Olivia and I go eat lunch. I go work out. We go to dinner probably. Like that's our vice. We eat out all the time. And yeah, man, this is what I enjoy doing. I wish everybody's season 3 is awesome as mine. And oh, by the way, we take crazy trips, right? We did a crazy 3 weeks in Europe, a month in Asia. We're taking off to New York for a couple of weeks. So we bought a crazy second home, which is now our first home. So my life is good. I love everything I do. All right, let's go back to, that's all of the school questions. So let's see if there's any more. Oh, do you provide discount services for tenants who offer to maintain your multifamily units? Nope, I do not do that. I have reimbursed tenants. Let's just close on that. I forgot what happened. Like something broke, like I think a sink broke or something, a faucet broke. The guy fixed it. So I reimbursed him, but only for materials, not for labor. So I have reimbursed tenants, but no, I don't offer discounts. Okay. All right. I think we've got to all the questions. Very, very cool. You guys are amazing. One of the things that is important to me, if you want to help me out in school, is I would love our school ranking. I just checked like 1,600. So school rankings, obviously number of students, but it's really interactions. There are schools above us in the rankings that have a lot less students, but have more interaction. So ask questions, post comments, like each other's stuff. If you could just take a couple of minutes each day to get these interactions, we will keep going higher and higher. We are now on the first page of school for real estate investing, which is pretty cool. We were on page 4, now we're on page 1. So really helping out. Again, remember tomorrow, 9:00, we will have the Uneducated Economist, and a real treat, 8 a.m. Monday, the one and only Greg Dickerson's coming back. So take care, have fun. Later.